So there's no good wins. I don't know if people are like, yeah, this doesn't fit, we're not gonna.
Which is not.
More than up to fucking 30 years ago, you looked at it. I said to be careful of the neighbor. And lose people. I mean, they didn't. So we can start that right. Right. Hey.
They got first.
We had, the high school.
Card.
Yeah.
Sign too, sign
My phone number is not changed. Office did. Yeah, Southern Chris's home already.
Okay.
No, I just.
Thank you.
I couldn't choose before, but last month. And we have to do the. I could.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, that's right, I said, no. I thought, right?
Yeah. Just across the street.
It's gonna be yours. Yeah, I'm.
So that's in November. Oh, wait.
I'm gonna announce the right when his daughter starts on the looking glass. We should do the. Conference room. Because Mayor Cal's. Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, on the ground floor. It's not as big as this room, it's probably about half the size, so we'll have to keep that in mind. Yeah, it has, it is. That would be it. I'm engaged. So I'll let you talk.
That's him.
All right.
Table case. Yeah. Wait. I don't think you. On the agenda, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we sent them to say we have to table it. Okay. Gonna position.
I thought I watched.
Cases.
Do you or?
Well, we've got, who's ready? You keep the clock for? I can. I'm gonna hold them to the 3 minutes. Yeah. Yeah.
Put the alarm.
Towards 3, so they. Or what? Area commissions are their own thing, but they still think they keep it snappy.
Yeah, but 20 people want to chime in.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
They're still three.
And the 3 don't, it's not the.
Yeah, I took Central College, I let them know, like, right, so they might just give it to one person, and not really mention it, so that works.
That works too.
So I'll see what they do.
Either way. Same thing they had in city council. Identical.
Right.
You can find that today.
Yeah.
It's a different world than they used to take that for the.
We'll see.
Yeah, I should have not. I don't want to. Yeah. I know.
I have little marks on my PDF.
But it gives you one of the privileges here. One thing you do,
Opposition. Somebody had said. It's some sort of easement or something. Yeah, so that one, because otherwise it's like,
yeah.
just like. Private land, it's not public land. One thing that has. Yeah. Oh, I should have.
Take a minute. Is it just that? We're still. They were spaced out. Yeah.
People who are just like. Make sure we take.
Yeah, you're exactly. There's two pages. Part of this.
There's.
So much. This
Like.
is here.
And different, yes.
Slower, so we're- should be- Cool.
Yes.
There's two scenarios. It's- Kind of. My body's too. Yes. Yes. Some things that are.
Okay, we can start without John.
Yeah, we're starting the policy. Yeah.
Are we ready to roll?
That's a little button in the center. There we go.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Okay, we are going to informally start tonight's hearing with guests from one of our favorite visitors, Tony Salabrizi. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon or good evening to you all. Thank you for, Mr. Chairman, and everybody for giving me a few minutes of time this evening. My name is Tony Salabrizi. I'm the Deputy Director of Building and Zoning Services Department. One of the projects, big projects that the mayor has begun, actually close to a year and a half, 2 years ago with our department, is a full review of our zoning code. You all are on the receiving end of lots of variances, and more variances you have, the more it represents that our code is not quite working for the development trends that we have in the city. And so I wanted to just bring you all with an update. I know I've talked to you all once before about this, but wanted to bring an update to you all, tell you where we are, and discuss a little bit about where we're going with this. So I think the last time I was here, we were getting ready to go into a phase 1 review. We had a consultant team that looked at our zoning code, and they came up with 5 issues that needed to be addressed. And these are kind of big 50,000 foot level. But of course, obviously the number of variances which create all these essentially one-off zoning code or zoning districts throughout the city. They also talked about that there's such differences between the neighborhoods, basically kind of the 1950s, pre-1950s Columbus and the post-1950s when this current zoning code was put into place. Much different attitudes and beliefs and development standards for that matter into place. And then our current code doesn't support the housing and transit needs that our city is going through right now. Makes it difficult, the processes make it difficult to get through and get anything developed and built. And then the pieces that you all see is, our code itself is just not user-friendly. It's difficult to navigate. The average person is challenged when they try to go. I mean, no zoning code is easy to navigate, but ours is exceptionally uneasy to navigate. So we need to keep that in mind as we go through. And then, the overall predictability of the process by which a developer or landowner goes through to get a variance or to rezone a piece of property can be cumbersome, time consuming, and can very easily be derailed with issues that really shouldn't even be on the table of the discussion when these occur. So we last year we did a survey, had a survey taken of about 3,000 members of the public. It was pushed out by a lot of different groups, definitely influenced by a couple of issues that were going on at the time. One was the giant eagle down in German Village. So the German Village area code is exceptionally represented in the results. But of those 3,000 responses, they generated 5,000 different comments. We left open for all the questions, comments. There was some really good ideas, some interesting ideas, and some that I'm not going to go to jail for. But one of the things we did find in there is that there is different priorities, which, as you can imagine, depending on whether you're a homeowner, renter, older, younger, different income. And the other piece is that we didn't hear from a lot of the communities that we need to hear from. The disadvantaged areas, like people that are probably working 2-3 jobs trying to make ends meet. They don't know what the zoning code is. They don't know how it impacts them or why they should pay any attention to it. So that helped give us some good direction. And so we've begun kind of a second phase here. Back in May, we got authorization to bring on 2 different consultant teams. We spent a lot of time looking at how other cities about our size, typical similar characteristics of us, and saw how they did it. Some good, some bad, some had challenges, some didn't. We took a very unique route in that we brought on a technical consultant that is definitely necessary to help us understand and do some analysis, but we also brought on a separate consultant to do with work on community engagement and communication. Because that has been where every city that has run into challenges with when they've gone through this process. It's been because they haven't been transparent, they haven't engaged the community, they haven't brought people along, they haven't educated them as to why the zoning code matters. And what we're doing is not going to destroy the neighborhoods. We're trying to, part of what we need to look at as a group is any changes that we suggest, how do they represent and protect the characteristics of our neighborhoods? We've got some phenomenally different neighborhoods, good and bad. So with this phase 2, we have begun to, back up with that communications consultant, we're better able to reach out and be transparent about what we're doing and educate the public. And so we're going to be spending probably the next 12 to 15 months educating the public, bringing them along, hearing what they have to say, because they've got issues, they've got thoughts about how some of the the factors with redline and other issues that have colored the way the city decisions have been made over the decades. And so we've got to learn from that. We've got to figure out how to do a zoning code that can help bring equity to the whole city. Now, having said that, the key piece with zoning is we can set the stage, as you all know. Zoning can set the stage, but we've got to rely on the private sector to bring the investment, to actually do the investment, do the improvements. But we've got to make sure we set the stage properly. We are going to focus on initially this next, like I said, this next 12 months with communications, but also on the transportation districts, transportation corridors, because those are the places where we found consensus already with people that most people believe, yeah, the transportation corridors, the major corridors, can handle additional density, additional units without impacting the characteristics of the neighborhood. People, when you start talking about getting down the side streets and in their backyards, they become very passionate, and they should be. But they tend to be a little bit more flexible when you're talking about your Broad Street, your high streets, and the other larger corridors that really are and were and will be hopefully again economic generators in the neighborhoods, because over history, those were the anchors of the neighborhoods. And we've moved away from that. Now people want to get back to that. That's the different attitudes of development, how people want to live in mixed use districts. So that's what our goal is for the next, like I said, year and a half, is going to be looking at the different transportation corridors and figuring out things that we can do. And hopefully we'll be back in front of you all tail end of the year to talk about some of the changes that we're going to be proposing, because obviously we'll be bringing a lot of those changes through you all as a public body for a public hearing. Obviously we'll be going to the area commissions and a lot of other presentations in the meantime. But we will continue to brief you all and bring you up to speed on where we are, and obviously look forward to any comments, thoughts, criticisms that you all have of how we're doing it, and do that. So I don't expect you all to be shy in any way, shape, or form. So is there any questions or any comments?
I have one comment, Tony. We have really, over the last decade, come to rely greatly on the area commissions, the work they do, because they're very close at hand with the actual stakeholders.
Right.
And they before we even get a look at it, it's already been modified and cleaned up to where it's got a lot more potential. So I hope they're part, and a very active part.
Definitely, and that's a great point. I appreciate bringing that up, Mr. Chairman. We're not, the goal of this is not to get rid of area commissions. As you say, they play a big role in a number of different processes with the city. And part of our challenge working with them is to get what their thoughts are, what do they think their neighborhood can see, what can they accept in their neighborhood, and to bake that into the code on the front end so that, we're still always gonna have variances and rezonings. There's no getting around that. But if we can reduce that number and allow homeowners, developers, big and small, to be able to do more things by right. But again, on the front end, the neighborhoods being, we're good with that. We've got issues with parking and some of the housing and side yards and so forth. Those are variances that we routinely see. Is there something that we can do to adjust that so that development can happen by right, but everybody most people are accepting of those changes? But yeah, they're going to be a key to our communications and working through and getting feedback from them, because that's the way we're going to do this the right way.
Okay. Yes.
I just wanted to follow up on that similar note, and that's just the relationship with the zoning code and the whatever plan is in place there. So wondering, because those now with C2P2 and how that gets amended, updated, I just wasn't sure. Often they're out of sync, and so that's where I wondered the communications there.
Kevin Wheeler from Department of Development, from Planning, is leading this with myself and Jennifer Fenning. Was Mike Bone, except he decided he'd leave us for greener pastures elsewhere, apparently. But Kevin and I and Jennifer continue to engage the planning group, planning section, along with the zoning staff, to stay on, and they've been great partners with us, and they will continue to be. And some of those are challenges. We've got a lot of layers in some areas, and can we do that better? Can we bake that into the code in a better format? I mean, I joke. We were talking with Councilmember Brown earlier today, and I use my neighborhood, which is outside of the Harrison West area. We're looking at doing some changes to our house, but Christine said, just go ahead and do side yard variances, because if something happens to your house, you're gonna have to get side yard variances, because all the houses are on the west property line. Yet you go up off of Bethel Road or out a little further, and everybody's got plenty of side yard. So, the same peg we're trying to put in both holes. So we need to figure out how to be creative and how to adjust for those types of scenarios.
Okay. Anybody else? Any comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Keep
Chair.
up the good work.
We will do our best. I'm sure we'll hear if we don't. So.
Okay, we will start the official part of the.
Fair. Shannon's got it.
I just have a quick announcement.
Oh, yes.
Yes, so, the, November 10th Development Commission meeting will be held in the lower level parking garage conference room. The conference room, or the building is addressed as 141 North Front Street. So this is just a 1-month move, because that evening here in this room and the lobby is the traveling exhibit, redesign the red line. So I think they were going to try to have the Development Commission meeting here and the exhibit out in the lobby area, but it seems like it's growing, and the best solution seemed to be to move the Development Commission meeting. So just wanted to let everybody know there. I know a lot of frequent applicants are here as well. So the notices will reflect the agenda, and the notices will reflect the new location, and it's just a 1-month thing. So thank you very much.
So what date will that be?
November 10th.
I think there's a 3-foot snowfall predicted. We're good with it.
So thank you very much,
Okay,
and
thank you.
appreciate it.
All right, we will start the formal Development Commission hearing with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, first on the agenda, case number 3, we need to vote to table for tonight. So we need a motion to table. I move to table. Second. Okay, seconds. All those in favor of tabling? Aye. Okay. Now, the first actual case number 1. Z20-002, 1040 West Broad Street.
The site consists of one parcel in the LC4 Limited Commercial District, partially developed with a vacant auto repair building. Ordinance 0236-2020 has been approved for a 45-unit apartment building at this site, which included variance requests for the height district, building lines, and reduced parking spaces. Staff supports the council variance to assist in the state funding application process, subject to the completion of a rezoning application to appropriate zoning district. The requested AR3 apartment residential district will permit a multi-unit residential development for approximately 45 units, consistent with the proposal approved by City Council. To the north of the site are vacant lots in the M manufacturing district and single-unit dwellings in the R4 residential district. To the south, across West Broad Street, is a convenience store and fuel sales facility in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. To the east is a vacant building in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. To the west is a fire station in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. Concurrent CB 20-003 has been filed to reduce the minimum number of parking spaces required from 66 to 45, and to reduce the building setback from 60 feet to 3 feet. That request will be heard by City Council, will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. The site is within the planning area of the West Franklinton Plan, which recommends neighborhood mixed use at this location. Additionally, the site is subject to the Columbus Citywide Planning Policies Design Guidelines and is within the boundaries of the West Broad Street Franklinton Urban Commercial Overlay. The site is located within the boundaries of the Franklinton Area Commission with recommendations for approval. The requested AR3 apartment residential district will allow residential development that is compatible with development standards of adjacent residential development and is consistent with the council variance already approved by City Council. Proposal is also consistent with land use recommendations of the West Franklinton Plan. City Department's recommendation is for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, Dan, traffic issues?
No traffic issues.
Hey, Chris?
No protocol.
Okay, Dave is here. Is anyone here to speak regarding application number 1 tonight? No, Dan, or Dave?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Dave Perry here as agent for the Wood Cooper Company. As staff indicated, there is a variance to permit this affordable housing development in Franklinton, consistent with city policy of how those applications are first handled by variance. That variance was approved by City Council, and WODA has engaged OFA and other financing sources and has also closed on the property. So the follow-up rezoning is going through the system now. So that's what this application is for, the follow-up to establish the residential zoning for the apartment development.
Okay, we do not need to add anything to the text, so please call the roll.
Rita Comroy,
Yes.
Johnny Wilson,
Yes.
Dan McQuaid,
Yes.
Steve Shanklin,
Yes.
Trevor Feather.
Yes, you are approved.
Thank you.
Okay, case number 2. Z22-051, 5191 Riggins Road.
The site is undeveloped in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The applicant is requesting a new CPD Commercial Plan Development District to permit a mixed-use development with up to 364 units and 47,900 square feet of commercial space. To the north and east of the site is undeveloped land in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. To the south is a multi-unit residential development in the LAR1 Limited Apartment Residential District. To the west, across Avery Road, are single-unit dwellings in the R Rural District and in Washington Township. Concurrent CB 22-063 has been filed to permit residential units on the first floor of the development. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. The site is located within the boundaries of the interim Hayden Run Corridor Plan, which recommends community, commercial, and neighborhood center land uses at this location, which primarily supports multifamily residential and commercial uses. Additionally, the plan includes early adoption of the Columbus Citywide Planning Policies Design Guidelines. C2P2 design guidelines recommend that buildings be parallel to and facing the street with entrance doors connected to a public sidewalk using high-quality durable materials and ground floor uses that address the street. The plan also states that open space should be integrated into new developments, serving as an organizational element or a central green space. Lastly, the plan recommends that structured parking be considered for mixed-use projects, that bicycle parking beyond what is provided by code be provided, and the parking lots be hidden from view. The site is located within the boundaries of the Hayden Run Civic Association. His recommendations for approval. I did receive an email from the Civic Association stating that they voted approval, but it was just, I didn't get information about the meeting date info. So I did have confirmation that they did receive for approval though. The development text commits to a site plan and includes development standards addressing setbacks, site access, landscaping, building design, lighting, graphics commitments. Included in the text are code modifications to maneuvering, minimum number of parking spaces required, and C4 permitted uses. The requested CPD, Commercial Plan Development District, will allow mixed-use development that is compatible with development standards of adjacent residential developments. Proposal is also consistent with land use recommendations of the interim Hayden Run Corridor Plan, and the elevations are consistent with the Columbus Citywide Planning Policy Design Guidelines. Traffic access study is in progress with this application. Additional commitments or access provisions may be needed based on the results of the approved study. Also, it would appear beneficial to add additional sidewalk along the service roads and to ensure there are no gaps in the internal network with connecting to the south. Once the Division of Traffic Management's comments are addressed, staff's recommendation will be updated to approval. Daniel can kind of talk about the current status of the traffic study, but right now our recommendation is for disapproval.
Okay, any questions? All right, Dan, tell us about the traffic.
The traffic impact study was completed with the previous rezoning for this area, but with the proposed change of use that affects the traffic signal warrant for the primary entrance to Riggins Road. So a updated traffic study is in progress to determine exactly when the threshold for traffic signal would be met based on the level of development. It's likely that that threshold would be met with the area of this application. The applicant has agreed to install the traffic signal if that's the case. There is a small but non-zero chance that the threshold could be met outside the area of this application. And so if that were to occur, there need to be further discussions about what happens in that case. So that was the only reason for the disapproval. The comment about sidewalk, that appears to be addressed with the site plan that's included with the staff materials for this meeting.
If they go ahead and plan this out and can get a building permit and start building, is there any traffic clarity that will occur between where we are now and then?
Yeah, the traffic study will need to be completed prior to this application going to city council. So we make sure that the relevant commitments are in the text or any of the follow-up conversations take place before that.
Yeah, we see that a lot. Okay, any planning issues, Chris?
No further comments.
Okay, let me ask, I see the applicants are here. Is anyone here to speak regarding case number 2, Riggins Road? No. Would you like to add to the presentation?
July 29, unanimous approval from the Senate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very, very succinct. You'll never top the clarity of that. Okay, any comments? Okay, please call the roll. Let's just have a clarification that you're basically in a, like everyone else that's in this situation where the traffic hasn't caught up to the other crossed T's and dotted I's. There's a blank check like it laying on the table, and you don't have as much strength as you'd like to have in the negotiation. So you've already talked about a traffic light, it may come to reality. You understand that?
Yeah, we actually have money in escrow to pay for the traffic signal from a previous closing. We're anticipating it's either upon this development or one of the last remaining parcels out there. So we're in full agreement and we want the signal.
All right. So I think this is not the first time we've been in this situation where the zoning's ahead of the traffic.
On this project.
Okay, yeah, right. Okay, please call the roll.
Johnny Wilson,
Yes.
Dan McQuay,
Yes.
Denise Keith Shanklin,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
and Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone.
Okay, case number 4, 3 was tabled. Z22-068, 5314 Avery Road.
The 2.7 acre site is undeveloped in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The requested LAR1 Limited Apartment Residential District will permit a multi-unit residential development, expanding the existing adjacent multi-unit residential development located to the east with a maximum of 72 dwelling units. To the north of the site is undeveloped land in the R Rural District. To the south is undeveloped land in CPD Commercial Plan Development District. To the east is a multi-unit residential development in the LAR1 Limited Apartment Residential District. To the west across Avery Road is farmland in Washington Township. Concurrent CV 22-092 has been filed to vary building lines, perimeter yard, and private garage height. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. The site is within the planning area of the interim Hayden Run Corridor Plan, which recommends office land uses at this location. Additionally, the plan includes early adoption of Columbus Citywide Planning Policies Design Guidelines. The site is located within the boundaries of the Hayden Run Civic Association, whose recommendation is for approval. The limitation text commits to developing the site in accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations, and includes development standards addressing density, site access, and graphics provisions. The requested LAR1 Limited Apartment Residential District will permit a multi-unit residential development that is compatible with the density and development standards of adjacent residential developments. Although the interim Hayden Run Corridor Plan recommends office uses at this location, staff recognizes the surrounding neighborhood is predominantly residential in nature and notes the proposed development is compatible with its neighboring development to the east. Planning Division staff are supportive of the elevations and site plan, noting a sidewalk and tree lawn on Avery Road frontage with a pedestrian connection to the site, which are consistent with Columbus Citywide Planning Policies Design Guidelines. Therefore, City Department's recommendations for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Dan, traffic?
All traffic issues with this application have been resolved.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, no further comments.
Okay, is anyone here tonight to speak on regarding case number 4? No one's here? Jeff?
Jeffrey L. Brown, attorney for the applicant. My client has developed a multifamily to the east, and so this will be just the next phase of that development. Same type of building, same standards, et cetera.
Okay, any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Dan McQuay,
Yes.
Denise Keith Shanklin,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Johnny Wilson,
Yes.
and Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you're approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay, case number 5. Z22-022, 3670 Treeview Road.
If you check your supplemental packets, you will see correspondence that I have received in the form of email, opposition letters, I believe 9 total, as well as 1 letter of support for this development. The 4.3 acre site consists of 2 parcels owned in the C4 Commercial District and 1 parcel owned in the LC5 Limited Commercial District. The parcel in the LC5 district is developed with a self-service car wash facility. The northern parcel in the C4 Commercial District is wooded and undeveloped, and the eastern C4 District parcel is developed with commercial buildings. Requested AR2 Apartment Residential District will permit the redevelopment of the site with a multi-unit residential development. To the north of the site is a multi-unit residential development in the apartment residential district. To the south is an automotive garage and used car lot in the limited commercial districts, multi-unit residential development in the limited apartment residential district, an office building, a single unit dwelling, and undeveloped land in Franklin Township. To the west is an office building in the C2 Commercial District, and to the east is a self-storage facility in the M2 Manufacturing District, and a single-unit dwelling in Norwich Township. Sites within the planning boundaries of the Trady Roberts Area Plan, which recommends commercial neighborhood land uses at this location. Plan includes the early adoption of the Columbus Citywide Planning Policies and Design Guidelines. Concurrent CV 22-029 has been filed, which includes a site plan demonstrating a 205-unit apartment complex with structured and surface parking. Variances to landscaping and screening, fishing clearance, building and parking setbacks, parking spaces, minimum number of required parking spaces, and perimeter yard are also included. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered for this Development Commission meeting. Site is located within the boundaries of the West Side Area Commission, whose recommendation is for disapproval. At the time the staff report was finalized, the traffic access study is still pending review in conjunction with this application. Additional improvements or access revisions may be necessary based on the results of the approved traffic access study and to satisfy the requirements of the Franklin County Engineers Office and Department of Public Service. Requested AR2 Apartment Residential District will permit a multi-unit residential development. While the Trady Roberts Area Plan recommends commercial neighborhood land uses at this location, the request is generally consistent with the zoning pattern in the surrounding area. Staff is supportive of the proposal as the site plan associated with CV 22-029 provides additional landscaping for the parking area fronting Trady Road, mitigating visual impact from the roadway. Additionally, the pedestrian pathway connecting Maple Way Drive and ground floor facade design treatments create an improved pedestrian environment consistent with C2P2 design guidelines. Moreover, this request does not represent incompatible use to the surrounding area. Therefore, State Department's recommendation is for conditional approval. Staff's recommendation will be updated to approval upon the completion of an approved traffic access study. Necessary commitments for access revisions based on the results of the approved study as required by the Franklin County Engineers Office and the Department of Public Service.
Okay, yes.
I just have one clarification question, and that was the earlier case was a disapproval and would change to approval once the traffic came in. This one was conditional approval that was going to change from the, I was just curious why one was started at disapproval.
I believe the other one was a limited district, which is limitation text overlay. This one is an unrestricted AR2 district, so everything would be later sufficed with the council variance application.
Okay.
If any changes to this site plan would be made.
Thank you.
Okay, well, speaking of traffic, Daniel.
A regional traffic study is in progress to look at the corridor scalings of Trady Road all the way out to the west and to the east. Also recently, a traffic impact study was completed associated with the Fort Trails development that did include the adjacent intersection of Trady Road and Hay Road. With that development, a commitment was made that that development would contribute 10% or up to $400,000 toward potential future improvements at the intersection of Trady Road and Hague Avenue. Franklin County Engineers Office is currently studying that intersection for potential future improvements. They notified us yesterday that their preferred alignment would include a roundabout at that intersection, which would potentially affect a small portion of the conceptual layout for this site. We determined that since this is an unrestricted zoning district, that information would affect our recommendation for this rezoning application. Also, a traffic access study is in progress for this site. The access points for the site are likely to be supported. Really, the key output of that study will be the percentage of this site's contribution toward that intersection of Trady and Hague, and the sort of monetary contribution that they would be making toward that potential future improvement that Franklin County.
Okay, on the site plan behind you, where would that roundabout be located? Would that would cause a major change in that building? The space for a roundabout was required.
Right, and again, this was, the county shared that with us yesterday. They may not have completed their full public improvement for that project. From the exhibits that they did share with us, the most of the roundabout would be south, and then to this corner, there may be a small modification to this building, but it would be limited to this corner, would be mostly on this site.
Is that going to be formalized before city council would be approached?
Yeah, that would need to be, the Franklin County Engineering Office is also reviewing this traffic study, and so they need to be comfortable with what's being proposed before they sign on.
Do you know what their schedule is?
I do not.
That's a difficult line to be in. Traffic, Chris, any comments?
No comments on traffic, but planning and building.
Oh, well, look over your shoulder a little bit.
Yeah, no further comments.
You're good? Okay, the applicant is here. Is anyone here to speak regarding case number 5? One person? All these codes, just one person. Okay, Dave, you want to add anything to the staff presentation?
Yes, thank you. I'm Dave Perry here as agent for Avenue Partners, and this is
All party with Avenue Partners?
thank you, staff, for the presentation summarizing the project. Members of the Development Commission, we have the rezoning before you tonight for the AO2 district and also the pending variance that will tie the project to the site plan on the screen, or as may be, need to be modified with the county. I think the email from Franklin County Engineer went to Daniel yesterday, and then Daniel was kind enough to forward it first thing this morning. So we were not aware of any Franklin County Engineer issue on this project until literally this morning. And so it's hard to respond to that on the day of the meeting. But Mr. Chairman, in terms of your question, the ordinances will not go forward to city council until there is complete sign off by the county engineer and the city. And if that results in some modification to that corner, then we'll have to figure that out. But there's a commitment to do that. And other than some very minor editing issues, we were under the impression that TIS was not approved until this morning.
All right.
The area commission, Paul Party and I spent a total of 5 meetings between the zoning committee and the full commission with the West Scioto Area Commission. And the zoning committee vote was 4-2 in favor. The full commission vote, Joe noted, was disapproval. That is a 3-4 vote. So very, very close vote. Two of the commissioners stated specifically that they would not support anything above 3-story. And this is 4-story due to the grading, with a partial element of the building, the clubhouse area, that is 5-story due to the grade of the site. There are lots of projects under construction in this area. The site is in the Corey CRA area for the city. The city wants development in this area, wants the density. And through those several meetings, Paul Party agreed to reduce units from 230 to 201. We did a tree survey.
231 to 205.
Okay, so 231, 205. And there were some early comments about there's a part of the site has a tree lot on it. Paul commissioned a tree survey, and the report back was that it was primarily insignificant trees, cottonwood, silver maple, black walnut in poor condition, as they often are when they're older, with heavy rot in the trunks, and heavy honeysuckle and grape on the property. So it's not a particularly significant tree stand. So throughout the process, Paul has addressed point by point with the commission, but it came down to a consideration of height, which is going up, and denser is clearly the direction the city is going, and the project is supported by the city. Within the Corey CRA area, there are, as you know, from all the projects that have come through the commission, there are many new construction projects in this area. The traffic concerns that were raised were, I would characterize as general background traffic comments. The roads are busy. I have to wait too long at the signals. It takes too long to make a left turn. They were not specific about this project. And as Daniel has noted, there are specific commitments that have and will be made about this project. And there's a regional study underway that will address, hopefully will address those regional issues that are outside of the scope of this project. So we would, our preference would be to proceed tonight, and we will resolve we will wrap up the issues as we're able to with the Franklin County engineer and the city office.
All right, let's hear from our speaker, and then we'll bring you back with any questions.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Brian Endicott. Some of you may recognize that I am a member of the West Idaho Area Commission and also the current zoning chair. However, it's important to recognize that I'm speaking tonight as a private citizen, private resident, and not as a member of the commission. And my view is a dissenting view from the commission's vote. I'm just going to highlight some of the things that I want to talk about this evening. The site proposed is currently a vacant car wash that has been vacant for at least a decade. And when you consider the quarter-mile stretch of road there on Treview Road and the other businesses that are on that stretch, you have to, any reasonable person would just assume that that car wash being vacant is very crime-ridden. That stretch is a complete and total eyesore, and it is a total embarrassment to the West Idaho area. It's a ripe area for development. Couple that with the well-known massive need for housing in Columbus, we have to consider that this is a site that's primarily going to be a target for development. So what we need is area commissions and developers to work together on a development so that it fits everyone's need. What you need is both to come to the table, area commissions to outline concerns, and for developers to respond by making some concessions and working with the commission on what comes out to be a good resolution. So as Mr. Perry noted, some of the concerns were about preserving trees, adding recreation to the area, traffic, building height, and building density. And the developer worked with us on every one of these and made adjustments accordingly. However, and I'm going to disagree with Mr. Perry on this, from my experience with the Sierra Commission, there were commissioners who were never going to support any development on this site whatsoever. There was no way, no matter what concessions this developer made, were they going to get the vote of recommendation. And like I said, what we need is we need to work together. The housing shortage is leading to growing homelessness. And from my perspective, the explosion in housing prices coupled with that increase in homelessness is a far bigger issue than the inconvenience that we might suffer through additional traffic or a four-story building. And I also have a concern that the voice of area commissions is declining. And I'm pretty sure my colleagues on area commissions would agree with me on that. But I take a different perspective on it. I think the declining voice of area commissions is that we're too frequently adamantly and uniformly opposed to any and all development where a developer comes to us, acts in good faith, works with us to make compromises, and they still cannot get our vote, is where we're going to end up embarrassing ourselves, and we're going to end up losing all credibility with the Development Commission, the Graphics Commission, and City Council. So that's where I stand. We need to add more housing. We need developers to be willing to come to the table and work with us and achieve a result that meets everybody's, and nobody's gonna get what they want. Nobody's gonna get everything they want. The developer came and made some compromises, but there were commissioners who were just never gonna vote for this. So I'd like for the commission to take that into consideration, and I respectfully request that you move forward and approve this application this evening. And I'm sorry, Dan, but I did not hear a word that you said on the traffic study. It's just too quiet in the back and too much chatter and the door opening and closing. So I look forward to hearing from you later after this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So you attended 5 meetings with the area commission,
Yes,
and you've made your adjustments down to where you are now?
yes, and in this case, I appreciate the correction from Mr. Endicott because he stated the disposition of certain commissioners that this was unacceptable from the get-go, no matter what change. So I appreciate him emphasizing that more so than I did.
Okay, any comments or questions? We have the usual warning that you have an unfinished traffic condition here and can't go any further till that's resolved.
Yes, acknowledged.
And you bring your blank check to the meeting when that time comes, and
Paul's already signed it and sent it to Daniel.
it's becoming more the norm than the irregular. Okay, with that understood, please call the roll.
Denise Keith Shanklin,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
I'm still really uncomfortable with the height, but I appreciate the words of the, the work that you all have done. I'll vote yes.
Johnny Wilson,
Yes.
Kay Mugway,
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, and we said it earlier tonight, working with the area commissions is of great value to us, and it helps mold much better projects than it would happen if everybody was against it. So thank you for your patience.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, case number 6. Z22-045, 2733 West Dublin Granville Road.
The site consists of a single 0.68 acre parcel developed with a single unit dwelling. Developed with a single unit dwelling that has been converted into an office. To the north is a single unit dwelling in Perry Township. To the south is a commercial warehouse in the MT Manufacturing District. To the east is the lawn and garden sales store in the MT Manufacturing District. And to the west is the undeveloped land in the MT Manufacturing District. Besides within the planning boundaries of the Northwest Plan, which recommends industrial and warehouse land uses at this location. Site is located within the boundaries of the Northwest Civic Association, whose recommendation is for approval. Division of Traffic Management requires a right-of-way dedication of 60 feet from the center line of West Dublin Granville Road. This right-of-way dedication will need to be completed prior to this application being heard by City Council. Additionally, access to the site is under the jurisdiction of the Ohio Department of Transportation, which requires a change of use permit for the driveway, as the previous use was residential but is now commercial. Request C2 commercial district will bring the existing office use into conformance. It is not considered to be an introduction of an incompatible use. Although the Northwest Plan recommends industrial and warehouse uses for this location, staff support the requested C2 district, noting that office uses are typically supportable within these areas and that the request will legitimize existing office use. Therefore, city staff recommends approval. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? No questions required. Ready to call roll?
You're from Dan.
Okay, look, are there traffic?
Nothing to add to the
Okay,
staff report.
just for the record,
No further comment.
my mind reader. Okay, please call the roll.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Johnny Wilson,
Yes.
Kay Mugway,
Yes.
Denise Keith Shanklin,
Yes.
and Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved. Okay. Case number 7. Z20-002, 1040 West Broad Street. Oh, that's the one. Z22-040, 5159 Central College Road.
Before I begin, included in your supplemental packet are 5 letters of opposition, including a letter from the Albany Crossings Homeowners Association. 5-acre site consists of one parcel developed with a single unit dwelling in the R rural district. The applicant requests the LAR1 limited apartment residential district to permit a multi-unit residential development with a maximum of 96 units. North of the site are single unit dwellings in the R rural district in Columbus and Plain Township. South of the site are single unit dwellings in the NG neighborhood general district. East of the site is a multi-unit residential development in the LAR12 limited apartment residential district and an extended stay hotel in the LC4 limited commercial district. West of the site are single unit dwellings in the NG neighborhood general district and R rural district in Plain Township. Concurrent CV 22-054 has been filed to reduce the required perimeter yard along the eastern property line. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. The site is within the boundaries of the Rocky Fork Blackwood Accord, which recommends neighborhood center land uses at this location. The site is also located within the boundaries of the Rocky Fork Blackwood Accord, whose recommendation is for approval. The limitation text includes use restrictions and supplemental development standards that address the maximum number of dwelling units permitted, building and parking setbacks, traffic access, off-site traffic improvements, perimeter yard, landscaping and lighting. Additionally, the text includes commitments to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plan, landscaping plan, and building elevations. Requested LAR1 limited apartment residential district will permit a multi-unit residential development with a maximum of 96 units developed in accordance with the submitted site plan, landscaping plan, and building elevations. The proposed density is consistent with the adjacent extended stay hotel and is also appropriate per the recommendation of the Rocky Fork Blackwood Accord and the area's emerging development patterns. The request incorporates street trees, pedestrian connectivity, building design, and increased landscaping along Central College Road. And therefore, City Department's recommendation is for approval.
Questions? Dan, traffic.
The potential future public improvements project is being planned that would add an additional travel lane each direction on North Hamilton Road between 61 and Central College Road. Also, a traffic access study has been approved for this application, and a westbound left turn lane that will be required to be constructed at the site access point to Central College Road.
Okay, and will that be the responsibility of this applicant?
Correct.
Okay, Chris?
No further comments, but
Okay, the applicant is here. Is there anyone here to speak regarding case number 7, Central College Road? 1, 2 speakers. Okay, we have the same rules as City Council. We recommend to City Council, they cast the vote. 3 minutes for each person, in addition to an area commission member if there is one. So you understand the game plan, try not to be redundant, and we'll take notes with what you have to say, and we'll get to the bottom. Michael, anything you want to add to the presentation?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As staff pointed out, this is somewhat of a sister project to the existing Fenimore development that was actually done by myself pre-Blacklick Accord. The subject site is 5 acre, somewhat of a bowling alley lot. We spent a significant amount of time with the Division of Planning in general and the Accord in specific. The layout of the proposed site we think is sensitive to the stream corridor protection zone that bisects the site. The zoning replicates the density that exists at the Fenimore and some other noteworthy projects contiguous and adjacent to this intersection are of the same or higher density. In terms of specific changes, the Accord required more extensive landscaping. In particular, there are a companion council variants for this, which is not in the jurisdiction of the board, but it should be noted that We did get relief on the eastern perimeter where we abut the existing Fenimore, but to the west, where there is single-family residential, we maintained the 25-foot perimeter yard. We do have code-required headlight screening to the extent it's applicable on the western boundary. And that existing green space does consist of some substantial mature trees that, to the extent possible, we want to preserve. Finally, I think it is important to note that the Accord scrutinized this over a period of 3 months and ultimately unanimously recommended approval as the Division of Traffic and all city agencies. So for those reasons, we respectfully request your approval.
Okay, any questions of the applicant? Okay, we have 2 speakers. If you'll step aside, we'll call you back after our speakers. Who would like to go first?
Go first. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Ed Ahern. I'm a resident of the Albany Crossing subdivision, and my residence backs up to this proposed enhancement to Fenimore. A couple things that I'm concerned about is the buffering for the trees. It's not specifically identified how they're going to handle the 25-foot buffer that they have in there, and also the parking that's identified there faces the backs of our houses on Marshfield. So I think the buffering needs to be identified as something that needs to be improved on that, whether it's fencing or shrubbery, more higher shrubs of 4 feet or something like that. The biggest concern I have is the sewerage. There's a storm sewer that runs through our property and goes through, they're going to hook into. That storm sewer backs up when we have heavy rain, and that pond that's on the east side or the west side of this fills up to about 10 feet, and it takes days for that to run off. There's a stream that it overflows into that fills up and runs very slow. And that stream will go into their property. So my concern is the water that's going to come off of that property, the Fenimore addition, is going to back up that storm sewer more. And it's also going to cause that stream to get higher, which could cause some flooding on our property. So there are 2 major concerns that I have.
All right, very good. Well, we've got some questions about that.
Okay, thank you.
Very much. Thank you for your input.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Patricia McCurdy. I'm a resident of Albany Crossing. I am also on the Albany Crossing HOA board, as well as on the Albany Crossing Master Association board. The Master Association manages all of the common property within our community, and a swatch of the land that Albany Crossing Master owns is just to the west of the Fenimore development project. We do have some concerns. Mr. Ahern talked about the stormwater drainage. When we have consistent or heavy rains, our northeast retention pond there that juts up against the west side of this development, it goes about 10, 12 feet over its banks. And it takes 2 to 3 days for that to drain through the stream that Mr. Ahern mentioned, and we know is part of the Albany Master property, and then the Fenimore property as well, and it goes into a third area. So we're very concerned with the water basins that are part of this development for Fenimore, and the stream being able to handle that extra water drainage off of the new site and carry it downstream from our property. The second concern that we have is the buffering between the proposed development site as well as, our neighborhood there. We do have some of those mature trees that were called out earlier. We believe are on our Albany Crossing Master Association property. Of course, we want those to be maintained with no damage when they come in to clear the site for the apartments. We also do ask that, and I believe I heard Mr. Shannon speak to it, but we are also asking that the mature trees within Fenimore's 25-foot setback be preserved as a nature buffer that will help with noise, lighting, that type of thing. So we do ask for those mature trees, again, within the 25-foot buffer to be maintained. Our third concern is privacy, of course, trespassing and security. We do ask that the developer install and maintain a 6-foot board-on-board fencing for the entire western border as well as the southern border. Again, all of that borders the Albany Crossing master land, as you can see on the screen there. So we are asking for that as well. We know that there is new landscaping in the plan, but again, we don't believe it's sufficient enough to really block the car headlights, the noise from the traffic, as well as trash pickup and that kind of thing. So again, we're requesting that those mature trees in the 25-foot setback be preserved as part of the natural buffer. And then someone please take a look at that water drainage to make sure that that's going to be adequate. It does flood the 4 homes that are right at our retention pond is the worst case for that flooding. And their back lots are very narrow there. So again, just address the water drainage, make sure it's going to suffice, and preserve those mature trees in the 25-foot setback. And then we do ask again for the 6-foot board-on-board privacy fencing be installed along the western and southern borders. I will comment that the Fenimore apartments, they are very nice looking. They're maintained very well. Especially impressed with their trash dumpster enclosures. They are beautiful. So they are a very appealing looking. So we're very pleased with that. And we hope to become very good close neighbors. So with that, thank you very much.
While you're sitting close at hand, regarding stormwater, any new project, according to the county engineer or whoever the jurisdiction it is, has the burden to take any off-site water that runs across the subject property and all the water created by the now more impervious surfaces on the developed property and deal with it. It can be done by ponds. It can be done by underground vessels or some combination. But sometimes these new projects can make the long existing troubles go away because a good engineer that's held to the rigors of the engineering standards will take in the tributary effect of the surrounding property, intercept that water, modify it, and add it to the quantity of water that comes off rooftops and sidewalks and parking lots, and come up with a couple options for the developer to go forward with. And that's become the norm now. So we'll talk to the developer about those things. Thank you for your input, and with all the commissions and groups you're on, yeah, I think you're gonna have a lot of.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that information. That's very helpful. And thank you for your time.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay, Mike. Let's start with the privacy fence or the effectiveness of a buffer strip. A 25 strip piece of grass is not much of a buffer alone. So it combines with existing trees and then new plantings to keep some privacy, keep the headlights from going across.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we're not adverse to that. We specifically discussed with the Accord, and there was a supplemental landscape package that was submitted that I'm sure is part of this, but we did actually add some landscaping on that western perimeter at their request. And in terms of a board-on-board fence, it was thought that, number one, there's existing mature trees on their side of the property that we obviously don't want to impact. And there are some mature trees on our side as well. the construction of a fence would probably do more to adversely affect those trees in, the accord. So, and obviously the 25 foot is a setback line, but just talking about it informally as a result of these discussions, at least 15 foot of that could be committed to try to maintain it as is with some flexibility there for, the actual construction activities that go on. But obviously it adds value to our property. We want to be a good neighbor. We did put in the extra screening. I think it's about 76 feet from the building line of the single family to where our buffer is. There are some additional areas that are more than 80 feet, which technically don't require the headlight screening under the code. And we've agreed to go ahead and put that headlight screening in when it's not required by code. So an effort was made to be sensitive to the western perimeter for the reasons that these people are here. That's a nice single family development. We want to be a good neighbor. If staff thinks I not somehow need to amend that buffer language or the board wants to condition it, again, we do think the fence would be, board-on-board fence would be more damaging to the existing substantial trees than that maybe preserving obviously what's on their side of the property line and trying to keep as much as we can on our side is the best we could do.
My gut feeling tells me with some sense of flexibility, not all fences have to be straight as the laser goes. Building that's in the southwest corner is pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Privacy, you're sitting on your patio, you're talking, you're at a cookout. That's certainly a place where a fence would fit, even if you had to modify its specific direction. I think you space the two northern buildings in the center of the parcel, so you, just by distance, you've got some privacy, so.
I would be certainly amenable to that.
Any other comments? Here? Okay, and I think we need a motion to add the additional fencing in the, what do you say, building number 3 in your site plan?
Yes.
Building number 3, the periphery of building number 3, closest to their neighbors, and hire a good engineer that not only takes care of your water for your new work, but also takes into account the tributary.
Are we talking about the west and south boundaries?
Yes, both west and south.
Just wanted to clarify.
Then that protects them, that gives them privacy, it gives you privacy as a side effect. That's the way I see it. Okay.
Does somebody want to craft that over there? Yeah, so I have a motion to include a 6-foot board-on-board privacy fence along the property lines along building number 3.
Yes.
A specific distance in mind.
The length of the building and past the width of the buildings. So it relates to the site plan.
Okay.
Keep the shade trees, keep the upper level people visually separated from the patios of the adjoining neighbors. Common sense.
Understood.
I will so move. Second. All those in favor? Okay, please call the roll. The stormwater doesn't need to be added because it's already an engineering principle. We can underscore that needs to really be dealt with because we're running out of options as we fill in these missing teeth. Who's your civil engineer?
Advanced Civil Design.
Okay, they know what they're doing. They've been down.
Yeah, and today's standards are more stringent than when this subdivision was developed. We're definitely held to a pretty high standard of managing water, so.
Right.
But we'll pay extra attention to it in the process.
And I know to the neighbors, it doesn't look like it matters, but sometimes many projects under a parking lot area have these orange vinyl vessels that are fastened to a concrete slab that allow stormwater to gather and then it slowly seeps out under control. and you don't miss anything, you don't have any open spaces. So it pays for itself very soon, so. So that, but that's not something we can make a condition of the zoning. It's in the engineering department, so underline that with a red pen when you're talking to a Dan. Okay, please call the roll.
Johnny Wilson? Yeah. Kay McQuick?
Yes.
Janice T. Shanklin?
Yes.
Maria Conroy?
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick?
Yes, you are approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Case number 8, Z22-058, 369 McLean Alley.
The 0.20 acre site consists of one undeveloped parcel in the R3 residential district. The requested CBD commercial plan development district will permit the site to be developed with parking solely for those uses located at 1252 East Main Street, a mixed-use building approximately 150 feet south of the subject site. North of the site is single-unit dwellings in the R3 residential district. South of the site is undeveloped land in the C4 commercial district. East of the site is a single-unit dwelling in the R3 residential district, and west of the site is undeveloped city-owned property in the R3 residential district. The site is within the planning boundaries of the Near East Area Plan, which recommends high-density residential / mixed-use land uses at this location. The site is located within the boundaries of the Near East Area Commission, whose recommendation has not been received when this report was written. I believe the applicant is actually on their agenda for tonight for the complete vote. The CPD text includes use restrictions and supplemental development standards that address building and parking setbacks, traffic access, landscaping, and lighting. Additionally, the text includes a commitment to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plan and building elevations. The requested CPD commercial plan development district permits the development of a 3-car garage and 4 surface spaces for those uses occurring at 1252 East Main Street. The CPD text includes appropriate use restrictions and development standards for this development. While the proposed use is not entirely consistent with the Near East Area Plan's recommendation for high-density residential and mixed use, the proposed parking does support an existing mixed-use building on the East Main Street corridor. Additionally, the submitted site plan demonstrates adequate landscaping to screen the proposed surface parking spaces, while the garage elevations are consistent with the plan's design guidelines, and therefore city departments recommend approval.
Okay, any comments, questions? Dan, traffic?
All traffic issues in this application have been resolved.
Okay, Chris?
No further comments.
Okay, the applicant is here. Is there anyone here to speak regarding case number 8? Okay, is there, sir, give your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Jensen Kai, the owner of 368 Monkey Alley.
All right, is there anything you'd like to add to what the staff has presented, or?
No.
You're good? Okay. With no further ado, call the roll.
Chair, I know in cases like this in the past, you conditioned your vote on a positive outcome at the Near East Area Commission meeting tonight. So I have written down that there'll be a motion for the DC to recommend approval pending the recommendation of approval, or the applicant will need to come back to the future DC meeting.
Right. You understand all that? That's become such a norm anymore. If for some reason the area commission has a problem with this, you will have to come back.
Understand.
Through the zoning and look it back through us.
Yes.
So as long as they vote in favor, this vote will take you on to your next step.
That's good.
Okay. Thanks for catching. Sure. Please call the roll.
Kay McQuaid?
Yes.
Janice Key Shanklin?
Yes.
Maria Conroy?
Yeah.
Marie Antoinette.
Johnny Wilson?
Yes.
And Chair Fitzpatrick?
Yes, you are approved.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, case number 9. Z22-044, 885 Stelzer Road.
This application was tabled at the September 2022 Development Commission meeting as the commission had additional questions or the applicant was not present for the meeting. 13.49 acre site consists of a single undeveloped parcel in the C4 commercial district. The requested N2 manufacturing district will permit all less objectionable manufacturing uses, including logistics and distribution uses at this location. To the north is an industrial warehouse use in the MT manufacturing district. To the south and west is manufactured home park in the R1 residential district. To the east is a parking facility and undeveloped land and manufacturing district. Aside from the planning boundaries of the East Columbus Neighborhood Plan and the Port Columbus Joint Economic Development Strategy, which both recommend light industrial land uses at this location. Additionally, the site is located from the boundaries of the I-670 graphics control overlay. The site is located from the boundaries of the East Columbus Civic Association, whose recommendation is for approval. Traffic access study has been completed and approved for the proposed development. The requested MT manufacturing district will permit all less objectionable manufacturing uses, including logistics and distribution uses at this location. Proposed uses are not considered to be an introduction of an incompatible use and are consistent with both the East Columbus Neighborhood Plan and the Port Columbus Joint Economic Development Strategy's recommendation for light industrial land uses. Planning Division staff are in full support of the proposal as the additional landscaping to screen parking from Stelzer Road and conceptual elevations are consistent with the East Columbus Neighborhood Plan's design guidelines. Staff continue to encourage preservation of existing trees where possible to screen from adjacent residential uses and to work with the city forester regarding street trees along Stelzer Road, but does not condition support on this request. Therefore, City Department's recommendation is for approval. I can answer any questions.
Okay, questions? Comments? Traffic.
Nothing to add to the staff report.
Okay, Chris?
No further comments.
Okay. The applicant is here. Let me ask, is there anyone here to speak regarding case number 9 tonight? Stelzer Road. No speakers. Would you like to add anything to the staff?
Dave Robinson, representing developer. We appreciate the summary and appreciate your support. Glad to answer any question.
Okay. Any? Pretty clean cut. Please call the roll.
Janice Key Shanklin,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Don Iverson,
Yes.
Ian McQuay,
Yes.
Sarah Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you're approved.
Thank you.
Okay, case number 10. Z19-043, 198 McNaughton Road. Oh, that paper stuff again. Check back, Z22-036, 6455 Presidential Ways. Case number 10.
Included in your supplemental packet is opposition material from residents at the Reserve at Hidden Cove HOA and an updated site plan showing public sidewalks along Corporate Exchange Drive dated 9/20/22. 6.11 acre site consists of 2 pieces of a larger undeveloped parent parcel in the LC2 Limited Commercial District. The applicant requests the LAR1 Limited Apartment Residential District to permit a multi-unit residential development. The single 132 unit apartment building on the western 4.12 acre tract, with the eastern 1.98 acre tract being dedicated to the city of Columbus as parkland. North and south of the site are office developments in the C2 commercial and LC2 limited commercial districts respectively. East of the site is an assisted living facility in the CPD commercial plan development district, commercial development in the LC2 limited commercial district, and a multi-unit residential development in the ARLB Limited Apartment Residential District. West of the site are 4-unit dwellings in the AR12 Apartment Residential District. The current CB 22-047 has been filed to reduce the parking setback along Corporate Exchange Drive and reduce side yard along the western property line. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. The site is in the planning boundaries of the Northland 1 area plan, which recommends office land uses at this location. The site is located within the boundaries of the Northland Community Council, whose recommendation is for approval with 4 conditions, all of which have been met by the applicant. The limitation text includes use restrictions and supplemental development standards that address the maximum number of dwelling units permitted, parking setbacks, traffic access, pedestrian access and connectivity, yards, dedicated parkland, and landscaping. Additionally, the text includes commitments to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plan, landscaping plan, and conceptual building elevations. The requested LAR1 limited apartment residential district will permit a multi-unit residential development with a 136-unit apartment building developed in accordance with the submitted site plan, landscaping plan, and building elevations. While the Northland 1 area plan recommends office land uses at this location, staff notes the presence of existing residential uses in the vicinity as a mitigating factor in considering support for this request. The LAR1 district includes a commitment to dedicate 1.98 acres of land to the city of Columbus for parkland, along with future pedestrian connectivity. Additionally, this request does not add incompatible uses to the area, and therefore city department's recommendation is for approval.
Okay, questions, comments? Too bad Kathy's not here to be thrilled about the parkland. Dan, traffic.
Nothing to add to the staff report.
Chris?
No further comments?
Okay, the speaker is here. Is anyone here to speak regarding this case? Case number 10? One speaker, the area commission. Michael, you want to add anything to the staff's report?
I'd like to thank him for the thorough staff report, and I'll be happy to address any questions.
All right, let's hear from Dave Paul and then.
Good evening, Chair and Commission. Bear with me, my voice is kind of half here tonight. We originally met, that is the Northland Community Council, of which I am the co-chair, met with the applicant and their representative originally in June of this year. At that time, we were hearing what we call look-see or a conceptual review of a proposal to provide or develop 132 units of residential, multifamily residential on this site. It is a site which was originally zoned in 1994 for commercial development. It is in the middle of what is largely a commercial district, but it has sat fallow for the most part since 1994. I think anticipating additional demand for office uses in this area, which especially now perhaps with COVID are not really anticipated to occur. At that time, we were talking about 132 units on a 4-acre site. While the committee, I think, generally appreciated the applicant's proposal, we felt the density was too high at what worked out to 32.67 units per acre. This was a conceptual site review. We expressed that concern to the applicant. By the time they came back to us in August, he had a slightly different proposal, and our committee, I think, felt that it spoke both to our concerns about the density as well as some other issues that had been presented. Our meeting was, however, well attended by residents of the local developments. One of them was mentioned, the reserve at Hidden Cove. And I'm not sure that there is not someone here perhaps tonight to express their position as well. In any case, we did have 4 conditions for our support. I understand they've all been fulfilled pertaining to the provision of bicycle parking, or a reservation of a certain number of units for ADA accessible residents or residents that require those accommodations. And a landscaping plan, which was not presented or available to us at that time. And then the relocation of a trash compactor that was shown on the southwest corner of the site, adjoining an additional, another residential property that we felt that relocating that would make it a better neighbor. All in all, our committee did vote 15-1 with 2 abstentions to support this application. And we would appreciate your considering that in your deliberations. Any questions?
No questions here. We appreciate your input. This, we talked about that. Many of these people heard us talking about area commissions, and you're the poster boy for, well, effective area commissions.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any questions? Michael? Do you have a date on this new site plan and the revised text?
Should be 9/20.
9/22.
Should be 9/20/22.
Okay, and it's text, thank you.
Thanks.
It's site plan and text
Yes.
revisions. Okay. We need a motion to read that into the testimony. So move. Second. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, please call roll.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Johnny Wilson,
Yes.
Caleb McQuaid,
Yes.
It's a little bit,
You know, I think I've skipped these guys. Yeah, it's just, unless I see a, do you want to add anything regarding traffic? Okay. I don't want to.
You did that before, Dave.
Well, I did say something about our a missing member who would be thrilled at the,
Yeah.
okay. So we're good. Call the last vote.
Caleb McQuaid,
Yes.
Denise Keys Shanklin,
yeah.
and Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes. Okay, you are approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, case number 11. D19-043, 198 McNaughton Road.
In your supplemental packet is an updated staff report that just reflects the requested zoning district, which is LAR 12. The LARLD was the zoning district that was requested the last time McNaughton Road heard of the Development Commission meeting. So it is AR 12. Also in the supplemental packet is an updated text dated 10/11 in updated site plan, which reflects the updated traffic commitment. The site consists of 6 parcels developed with 2 single-unit dwellings and a religious facility in the R rural district. The applicant is requesting the LAR 12 limited apartment residential district to permit a multi-unit residential development, maximum of 296 dwelling units. Z19-043 was initially considered at the June 19th, 2019 staff review meeting and approved at the February 26th, 2022 Development Commission meeting. The application has been revised from 2 parcels, 14.8 acres and 192 dwelling units, to 6 parcels, 25.7 acres and 296 dwelling units. A change in density from 12.97 dwelling units per acre to 11.52 dwelling units per acre. To the north of the site is a multi-unit residential development in the LAR 12 limited apartment residential district. To the south are single-unit dwellings in the LR 2F limited residential district. To the east are single-unit dwellings in Truro Township. To the west, across McNaughton Road, is a fire station and a religious facility in the R1 residential district. Concurrent CB 22-032 has been filed to vary building lines, perimeter yard, perimeter parking lot landscaping, maneuvering, and parking space size. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. The site is located within the boundaries of the Far East Land Use Plan, which recommends low to medium density residential land uses at this location. Additionally, the plan includes adoption of the Columbus Citywide Planning Policies Design Guidelines. The Columbus Citywide Planning Policies indicate that projects that are proposed at a density higher than the recommended land use may be supported if they include a high level of site and architectural design. The site is located within the Far East Area Commission, whose recommendation is for disapproval. The limitation text permits through site plans and elevations and includes development standards addressing site access, buffering, building design, and graphics provisions. The requested LAR 12 limited apartment residential district will allow a multi-unit residential development with a maximum of 296 dwelling units. While the Far East Land Use Plan recommends low to medium density residential for the site, staff supports the proposal as a proposed plan a sidewalk access along McNaughton Road, a pedestrian connection to the site, adequate landscaping and building elevations that provide for high-quality materials,
Yes.
consistent with Columbus citywide planning policies design guidelines. With the updated text and plan included in your supplemental packet and as shown on the screen, all of the comments from the Division of Traffic Management have been addressed. So the city department's recommendation has been updated to approval. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Okay, Dan, any traffic issues?
The traffic access study has been approved for this application, and the southbound left turn lane will be required to be constructed at the site access point to McNaughton Road. As Kelsey mentioned, the conference.
You can speak up. Everything.
It's a recording. It's not.
Oh, okay. Okay. My apologies. Gather my voice real quick.
Little NyQuil break.
All right. I can speak loudly. My phone actually tells me to speak quiet here all the time, so I'm not used to the other way. A traffic access study has been approved in conjunction with this application, and a southbound left turn lane will be required to be constructed at the site access point to McNaughton Road. Additionally, as Kelsey mentioned, all the comments that are listed in the staff report have been resolved for traffic management.
Okay, and is that in the text to your satisfaction?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right, Chris, planning? And
Planning has no further comments.
okay, are there any speakers regarding this application? All right, I see multiple hands. We have to, is that it, are any of you an area commission representative? Okay, like city, this is a preview of city council. City council allows 3 speakers, 3 minutes each. They do not want the speakers to be redundant. They want them to cover different aspects. So you need to select 3 speakers. You will be timed by our referee here for 3 minutes. Consider this a practice for city council. Tell us what's on your mind. We're very experienced in taking in this information and processing it. And we'll hear you all via the 3 people that speak. After that, there'll be no further public comment, but we will then bring the applicant back. Now, Michael, is there anything you want to add to the presentation before we start that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, 4 of the commission members, I believe, were actually present when this, a remarkably similar zoning was heard back in 2019. That involved 15 of these 25 acres. And that application was approved by this commission. After that, and prior to going to city council, we had something called a pandemic, and quite a lapse in time for this proposed development. And in the 2-year plus interim, in addition to the 15 acres where we were originally proposing about 13 units to the acre, we added 10 units in this proposed market rate housing. Now is 25 acres, and the overall density is 11.5 units to the acre. So we've put a lot of time and effort into working with the area commission and neighborhood groups, the condo associations, and various representatives. Quite frankly, most of the discussions and all of the concessions have been unilateral during these last several months. I appreciate the position that the neighborhood has taken. The fact of the matter is there's not a lot of market rate housing in this neighborhood. I think that perhaps further justifies this particular location. But I'd like to highlight the major points that we think are compelling in our favor, and also point out how this differs from the original application. So again, now we're at 25 acres, and you look at 292 units. Originally we're at ARLD, apartment residential low density. Again, apartment residential low density, and it was historically we started out at 17.4, got down to 14, and originally got an approval for a little bit more than 13 units to the acre back in back in 2019. What we have before you today is a remarkably similar layout. However, the density is overall is now in the AR12 category, which is a step lower in the hierarchy. And addition to the development, we have about a 6-acre green space that is being preserved for parkland. It's got pedestrian access trails. There's a tree preservation up in the north and east corner that is very substantial. All of these have been done with the input of Parks and Recs, who approves this site as well. And you can see that it is laid out in such a way as to have a center corridor that accents that green space and also will make it accessible to our neighbors. Also, the dramatic difference in the density was achieved by spreading the buildings out further. They are oriented, as you will see on the perimeter, in a north and south manner. So as at the large portion or lengthy portion of the buildings, the frontage and the backs are actually not facing our neighbors to the north or to the south. The internal courtyard has buildings clustered. You will also note that we have gone from 3-story units to 2-story units. The additional footprint allowed us to do that. So that is a very significant change. I think the hot button items with the neighbors, and they are well versed and can address it better than me, are number one, density. The area plan calls for 10 units to the acre here, and we are at 11.5. Number two, land use. They'd rather see owner-occupied condominiums. And again, that density they'd prefer would be up to 10 units to the acre. And the hot button of traffic. They feel as if this is a highly congested corridor because it's virtually almost right across the street from Mount Carmel Hospital and huge employment centers on East Broad Street. And there's a fire station across the street. They feel that this should rise to the level of a traffic impact study and not a mere access study. Been through this many, many times. In that regard, we have our traffic engineer, our land planner, as well as our utility engineer available for questions here this evening. So at the end of the day, we had to agree to disagree with the neighborhood, and there's really nothing I can do. I don't think that I haven't already tried to get consensus. I would note for the record that if you look at a zoning map, and Kelsey, I don't know if there's additional slides, perhaps you already showed them all, but if there's a zoning map, I think it would be helpful that if you look immediately north of our site, that is zoned AR12. And north of that site is a tract that is zoned ARLD. And the proposed land use plan is 10 units to the acre for our site, and we're at 11.5. At the time the plan was done, 2018, and even at the time of the approval in 2019 by this body, an awful lot has happened since then. Obviously, there was a pandemic, and then there's been the realization of the critical market rate shortage in housing in this community. We simply cannot meet the demand, and this is a good zoning. This is a good project. The architectural commitments to 2 stories, the elimination of vinyl siding, and using top grade materials, the agreement for luscious green space and large setbacks, and the other elements of tree preservation all come together to make a great project. And quite frankly, it cries out for higher density, but I could not get that approved. And all the concessions we made were in my client's desire to be a good neighbor, knowing full well that we would never really get neighborhood support. So with that, I would be happy to address any specific questions or respond to questions after testimony from the opposition.
All right, let's see if is there Is there 3 speakers that we can count on? Yes?
Thank you.
On? Great. Good evening. My name is Colleen Missel, and I'm here representing the coalition of residents bordering McNaughton Road, all of whom, many of them in the audience, strongly object to the out-of-character and ill-conceived 198 McNaughton project. Let's start with the undisputed facts. The area is triple R zoning, rural to match the character of the road between East Main and East Broad. Excluding the commercial quarters at each corner, there are only owner-occupied homes and 4 churches. McNaughton is a 2-lane country road, no lights, no sidewalks, deep drainage ditches bordering the road. Fire Station 5 on McNaughton had over 5,869 runs, counting all vehicles, between January and September of 2022. And that number does not include the ER vehicles from surrounding county, neighboring counties that race down McNaughton Road to the rear entrance of Mount Carmel's hospital, since they have moved their ER to the rear of the building. Old Orchard Elementary School pickup line backs up along McNaughton Road, since there is nothing except for ditches for people to move over, backs up on pickup time around 3 p.m. Last Friday I was there, 40 cars lined up on McNaughton Road, 2 buses. That was the southbound lane. That was the northbound lane. The southbound lane has a turn lane, and they exceeded the turn lane by about 10 cars. Now, as soon as that chaos ends, the pickups are done, then we have the shift change at Mount Carmel Hospital. There are probably at least 40 to 50 cars that back up to the Main Street light. I'm assuming that they're all trying to avoid the Broad Street craziness by going down McNaughton Road. There's a no truck sign that is totally ignored, as 18-wheelers are a common sign. Why do I point out the road debacle? Because most of all, the residents, 2,456 cars, must and can only exit their homes via McNaughton Road. The city of Columbus has wholly failed this wonderfully diverse community by never doing a road study, but instead cavalry approving this 600 vehicle 198 project to be added to the chaos that's already there. You simply can't ignore these road facts, but you will if you approve this site. Here's why you need to step back and see this proposal through the eyes of the residents, all of whom own their homes. 80+ year growth of trees on this proposed site will be clear cut. They can't be replaced. You all know that. And the bottom line is that the city professes to be about canopies. What do canopies do, tree canopies? They absorb the layers that cause climate change. So there we go, we're clear cutting a bunch of great trees. This area is hugely canopied. The city is also experiencing a home ownership shortage to the tune of 6,000 to 10,000 annually. 1,000+ apartments have been built from Hamilton Road on East Broad Street to Wagner Road. Whitehall and Reynoldsburg, which border this property, continue to provide thousands of apartments. We don't need apartments on McNaughton Road, but most importantly, and this is what I really want to emphasize to you, for once this commission, this city, and government in general can stop impacting communities of color, which we are. Generational wealth, importantly, comes through home ownership. Government has excluded minorities, as you well know, from the GI Bill forward, redlining, through banks and through realtors, or through cutting through viable communities with major highways like Route 70. The Columbus Partnership has stated that the city needs to close this historic gap. The closure starts with this commission. Our residents have worked hard to further generational wealth by owning their homes. And you simply cannot add to the historic impacts by devaluing that ownership with an ill-conceived apartment complex. It's time to close the gap.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lee Cole. I'm a resident of Laurel Canyon and also the president of our Civic Association. I'd like to thank you all for allowing us the time to speak with you today. What I'd like to talk about is something that where Colleen just left off, and it's the opportunity to build generational wealth. We all know that single-family residential properties build long-term wealth in our community. What we know for a fact is that families are fighting for single-family homes. Today, one family can have 12 to 16 offers on a home and still miss out. They are fighting for the opportunity to take root in this wonderful city and build wealth. I made a request to the Department of Building and Zoning. In the last 5 years, we've had about 118 applications for rezoning. Zero, not one of them, have come with a plan to build single-family homes in our community. Over 90% of them have been for high-density apartments or multi-use developments. So I ask you, who is America's Opportunity City really for? According to the Building Industry Association of Central Ohio, we are at a deficit. 14,000 to 19,000 homes should be built each year instead of the 8,000 to 9,000 that are built in our region. These wealthy developers and their attorneys are using cloak and dagger tactics, outside developers, to prey on municipalities with the common talking points of, we're in crisis, we need more housing, they don't want this in their backyard. But the truth is, they're preying on these municipalities, bringing us proposal after proposal for high-density apartments because they don't want them in their backyards. Dublin is building single-family homes, 102 units on 42 acres that was just published in the Dispatch. Reynoldsburg has started a brand-new community called Spring Hill Farms, 354 homes in a new development. Grove City, on a site similar to ours, is building 74 homes. They're solving the housing crisis because they understand home ownership is how you stabilize communities. You live, work, and play in your community. They are making sure that their families stay. But what are we doing in Columbus? Exactly the opposite. Their attorneys, they show up here, but the developers don't. We are your community. We are your voice that you should be listening to, or at least taking our voice into account. They have monetized fear. They have monetized and found ways to sit before you time after time. Look at your agenda today. How many single-family homes were presented to you today versus the number of high-density apartments? Home ownership is how you build wealth, it's how you build community, and it's how you build families. Columbus is at the tipping point of creating a constant transient community that is also, building a transient community that is doing double profits, double digits for high developers who in 10 years abandon us. We are making the investment in our communities with not only our dollars, but our future generations. We would like the opportunity to build generational wealth, just as these developers and their attorneys that are building generational wealth. Most of these developers don't live in Columbus, but the people behind you, the people that come in here week after week to council, to the Development Commission, we're investing our time, our families, our dollars. We are truly investing in our community for the long term, where these developers are not. They're coming in, they're building high-density apartments, and then in 10 years, they sell them off to the next person. Then in 10 years, they sell them off to the next person. Then it becomes a burden and a problem on our city services. We're asking you to please table this discussion, look in totality of land use. How many opportunities are we giving residents to invest in themselves and truly invest in our community by building single-family homes, or at least including it in the mix? Again, look at the agenda that was before you today. how many opportunities are you giving to the future families? Tell families that you're welcoming the opportunity city, because right now, all of our suburban neighbors are doing just that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Henry Guzman. I'm a former public safety director for the state of Ohio and also public service director for the city of Cleveland and also public service director for the city of Cleveland, Ohio, and public safety director for the city of Cleveland. So traffic and accidents have been part of my agenda for a long time. And that is that sometimes cities go too far on the front end of an agenda and start building homes and apartments and so forth without consideration to the current infrastructure. Will it support it? And my thing is that unless you have the roadways that will support the infrastructure going forward, and support the housing going forward, then we should not be allowing these types of apartment buildings to go up in these owner-occupied residencies. And so my ask to this austere body is to hold this project, requiring the developer to build single-family homes or condominiums, follow the Far East Area Commission land use plan of no more than 10 units per acre. And we've asked, we've requested from the city to conduct a comprehensive traffic study. There are other developments that are being constructed right now there on McNaughton. And I don't believe that they have been taken into consideration. This is besides this one that's being before you today. And in one of the Far East Area Commission meetings, when the issue of a comprehensive traffic study was brought up, the response from the developer was, we will pay for it if there is a request from the city that we conduct one. So we're asking that the city make the request and the developer has indicated that they'll pay for it. So I think it's important that we kind of listen to our citizens and make sure that any apartments or buildings or anything that we build, that the roadways and the infrastructure will support it going into the future. So thank you very much for your comments. Also, I was given a note here from someone, let me see if I can understand what this is. Are we funding a tax abatement for wealthy developers to get richer? That's not my comment. Someone asked me to make it. Where is the responsibility of the Commission for Responsible Growth? So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Any comments or observations? Well, all right, Mike, you've heard.
Sure. First of all, I hold my neighbors in high regard, and I do not doubt for 1 minute the sincerity of the comments you just heard. The fact of the matter is, having lived in Whitehall and/or the Far East Area Commission my entire life, I know this site particularly well. Having been doing this for 40 years, I actually rezoned most of the condominium units that these people live in. Whether it's the people directly south, the Marone O'Keefe project, the Ryan Homes project, Romanelli and Hughes project, the Whit Dillon project. It's a beautiful number of beautiful condominium communities. The fact of the matter is, this body is looking at a rezoning. And when you rezone, you regulate the use, not the user. And despite their strong held beliefs that owner-occupied units create
generational wealth. Single-family units create generational wealth. We are in a time period where people can't afford a house. Interest, interest rates have doubled in the last 18 months. People are making an active decision to live in rental communities for a variety of reasons. But the fact of the matter is, those numbers were right on target. The delta between 14,000 and 18,000. That's the supply versus the demand, but it's not single family. It's housing units. And apartments make up the vast majority of the number of units, and also the vast majority of how you close that delta. So I don't want to be preachy, but the fact of the matter is, with respect to the traffic impact study, you know, the seed was planted very early that if you had, you know, 200 additional parking spaces, you needed a traffic impact study. And that's a common misconception, and our traffic engineer, or better yet, Moorhead would tell you that you need a traffic impact study when your peak hour traffic increases by 200 trips. And because I told them, if you can get the city to require a traffic impact study based on the statute, I'll pay for it. My client will pay for it because it's not required for this proposed development. Again, I hold Director Guzman in high regard, but the emphasis on the users, although sincere, is not really appropriate. And again, the area plan that was done in 2018 recommended 10 units. We're at 11.5. I think that the critical need, I mean, market rate housing is an infrastructure. And a subcomponent of that is affordable housing. Now, we haven't gone there. We haven't sought a tax abatement. We are not in a CRA or tax abatement area. And quite frankly, I would have recommended my client have a component of affordability based on the market conditions. And the more I've done for WODA and other affordable housing, it's got a horrible connotation of being substandard housing, but workforce housing is not substandard housing. But the fact of the matter is, if I went down that path, I'd have more opposition than I do right now, because they're concerned about the user as opposed to the use. I'd be happy to address any specific questions.
Questions?
I don't have any questions for you, but you touched all the bases last time at 19, touched all the bases this time. I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
I've got a granddaughter who is a nurse in Chicago. Shares an apartment with 3 other nurses, and she wouldn't have it any other way, and wonders what's wrong with me that I put all my time in mowing grass and raking leaves and dealing with all that and missed out on all the fun you can have. So they're in Columbus is a college town that's grown up, and I've seen so many projects where there's apartments. I've seen the condo units for the young-minded retired people. And they don't want to be segmented and a car ride away from the grocery store and a 15-minute drive through 8 lanes to go to the shopping mall. I mean, think of Columbus when Northland, Eastland, and Westland were where you went to shop. It wasn't a very good way to live. And these young college kids, they come to work, they wouldn't do that if they had, they have no interest in that. They'd rather have what free money they had in some kind of an investment fund that grows for long-term wealth rather than a house that you have to take care of. It's, maybe they were spoiled when they grew up. Everybody I knew got out of college and said, what do I do now? Well, I guess I gotta get married. Well, what happens next? Well, I need to buy a house. These kids are a little sharper and they're looking a little further. So I don't put the same stigma on whether a property is owned or rented. And I try to understand, why do these young people think that people like me and probably these other folks here had a house that owned us? And a lot of what we did, we had to do because we had to pay a mortgage and we had to paint the gutters and mow the grass and trim the bushes and buy new furniture. They're going the other way. So I don't put a big weight on that. You have less density and a plan that incorporates a 2-acre park here and
6 acre.
6-acre parks. Is that, you said it was open and available to
Yeah,
outside?
yeah, the city asked us to install walking paths, trails as opposed to anything paved. And there will be pedestrian access from the south and from the clubhouse area.
Where? Access where? That's my backyard, literally.
If they want access, there will be access. It's available. It's a condition of the staff approval to provide sidewalks.
All right, let me ask the staff, how would people that live, if I was living in one of the homes there, how would I get to that 6-acre park? I'm not. All right, we're going to go out and have a meeting in the hallway if this keeps up. I'm asking the staff a question. I'm thinking of a neighbor, somebody that goes out and takes a jog or takes a dog for a walk. Neighbor. Walkable community, how can they get to this park? What do they have to do?
Like, unless, other than this, is there any?
The traffic concessions included the construction of sidewalks along Danner Road that provides that pedestrian. That's the street that stubs in from the south that goes in to provide the alternative access, not only for, but for vehicular access, primarily for emergency vehicles. But the city, with its number of units, likes to have 2 ways in and 2 ways out.
Yeah.
But there's also the code that automatically requires you to put in the sidewalk, and Mr. Moorhead, as well as the Division of Planning, required that connectivity. And also they required connectivity actually from McNaughton Road.
So you can come up here and enter the property here, get to the path.
Yes, sir.
Get to the middle.
Yes, sir.
Can you get there from this end?
No.
Right, well,
Nor was there any desire at that time,
Okay.
since the emergency.
So somebody here has to come down here.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And of course, our amended plan does have sidewalks on our frontage, and you have the argument that it's a sidewalk that goes to nowhere, but it is along our entire frontage.
Mr. Chairman, I walk that path that you were talking about on a regular basis because I live on the street adjacent. There's already a 2-mile perimeter walking path in our community that is not necessary to connect from Danner Road to that community. There's no need to connect it. And we propose that connection, pedestrian and vehicular.
All right, I'm just asking about this, how this property works and what it means.
Every day.
I mean, I hear the words walkable community every day in what I do. And people think you're a chump if you don't live in a walkable community.
Absolutely, I'm very familiar, and our community is low rated walkable because there's no sidewalks.
All right.
Part of the infrastructure that we're saying is lacking.
I mean, this property was approved 2 years ago. 3 years ago. The initial property was approved in 2019. It was a different property. It was 15 acres, not 25 or 10. And it had a lot of discussion. I see every one of these buildings on the north side of this property, and every one of these buildings on the south property building is showing an end wall to the neighbors. Nobody's balcony is hanging over their backyard. There's 2-story buildings here, not 3-story. So there's been a consistency here.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, this property was never approved by this body. It was tabled, it was to go back, and it was to the commission, okay, to the Far East Area Commission. COVID hit, and everything stood still, but this body never approved it. It was approved.
When we approve.
That's not accurate.
When we approve a property that comes before us, like the 10 that we already looked at today, we make a recommendation to city council that based on what we see in our experience, it seems consistent with the area and it seems appropriate as a use. We don't have the right to make anything into law. That goes to city council. Now, I don't know what happened to this approval that we have, but it wasn't approval. How many times have you sat here in this meeting and tell someone, okay, you've been approved 5-0. Next case. We do make an approval or a disapproval or a tabling based on what we see. So I don't know where you're coming from when you say this was never approved.
I think you tabled it, if I'm not mistaken.
We may have tabled it once and then approved it the next time, but we did approve it.
That's correct. That is correct.
No, sir. I don't think so, but your record should have that. I mean, I don't want to.
We have staff, and please, Kelsey, speak up.
This application was, I believe it was tabled maybe twice at Development Commission, but it was eventually approved at the February 26th, I believe it was 2020, Development Commission agenda. So it was tabled at one point, but then it was recommended for a vote of, a recommendation of approval at this body. It just never moved forward to city council.
And there were adjustments made. There was a layout that wasn't as effective as this layout is in providing privacy. And is it similar to use to what else is going on? Yes, it's not the same as it was 20 years ago in traffic. And yes, the hospital has grown immensely and McNaughton Road's still 2 lanes. But I can do a traffic study.
I implore you to go to council and bring this up.
We'll do that.
Good. I invite you to do that.
I want to correct the.
Wait a second.
You have.
Listen, you have your forum. I'm sorry.
There's a greater demand for single family.
You've had your forum, and we've invited the speakers, and you have spoken.
All right, that's the last public.
No more outro.
I think it's time to call a vote. There's the document, there's the layout. You've heard the pros and cons. We really can't tilt in the way of whether this is a rental community or a owner community or something handed down through generations. Is it an appropriate use or is it not an appropriate use? That's what we vote on. That's what city council looks at. They take our recommendation to heart. You have a chance to have the same forum with city council whenever that is, in a month, in 2 months, whenever that is. If another pandemic hits, it'll be 3 more years and we'll be back in the same room again. But I think this has been pretty well discussed. I appreciate the input by our speakers who were right to the point. We understand it's very tough. I believe that the day will come where first we'll start with the left turn lanes and the widenings, but there'll be an overhaul on that roadway. And for the time being, it is what it is. Now, I think the time has come to call the roll.
Need a motion.
For the updated text.
Text and the site plan can also be dated 10/11.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Wonderful. Chair. Are you ready for the roll?
Ready for the roll. Yep.
Maria Conroy,
I'm voting no.
Johnny Wilson,
I'm voting yes.
Kane Woodward,
I'm going to qualify my vote before I say it. I think I heard what Mr. Shannon said earlier when he used the word, or when your sentence was, you regulate the use, not users, and that is true. But on the other hand, when you are regulating use, you should also put into consideration those who are already established in that neighborhood. I think from what we've heard and what we've seen, yeah, McNaughton Road is 2-lane. There hasn't been any much improvement since this has been coming up. I've traveled that road a couple of times. I have to put into consideration the existing neighborhood in that area. So for that reason, I'm going to vote no.
Shanice Keith, thank you.
No.
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
No.
And Chair Fitzpatrick.
I'll vote yes, and this is a no vote. We'll go to city council according.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Could you repeat that, please?